Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first Nourish to Flourish webinar of 2026. If this is your first time joining us, we're so glad to have you. If you've joined us before, welcome back. My name is Shirley Sue. I'm one of the clinical dietitians with the Stanford Lifestyle and Weight Management Center. I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Stanford Health Library under Lifestyle and Weight Management Recorded Lectures, along with the presentation handout. You'll receive an email after the session with a link to the recording. If you have any questions during the webinar, please add them to the Q&A chat box located at the bottom of your screen. We'll review those with our presenter during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. Now I have the pleasure of introducing today's presenter, Dr. Brittany Matheson. Dr. Matheson is a licensed clinical psychologist and clinical associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University School of Medicine. She's the director of the Stanford Eating Disorder Research Program Data Coordination Center and the director of psychological services for the Lucile Packard Children's Hospital Adolescent Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery Program. She conducts comprehensive evaluations and provides evidence-based treatments for individuals across the age spectrum with eating disorders, including anorexia, nervosa, bulimia, nervosa binge eating disorder, and other specified feeding and eating disorders. Her recent research focuses on reducing access to care barriers by digitizing evidence-based treatments and utilizing technology to enhance treatment outcomes. In her spare time, Dr. Matheson can be found reading mystery novels and cheering on her favorite college basketball team, Blue Devils. The topic today is eating with awareness, tools to navigate non-hunger and emotional eating. Humans eat for many reasons above and beyond physiological hunger drives. Do you ever find yourself opening the refrigerator over and over just to look, or grabbing for a favorite snack after a hard day at work? How about eating to cope with stressful life events? Emotional eating is very common, yet can derail health and lifestyle goals and lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and distress. This session will focus on ways to identify emotional eating and practical tips, tools, and strategies to regulate emotions without turning to food. Welcome, Dr. Matheson.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a moment as it sets up, and then perfect. All right, here we go. My Zoom is just delayed for one moment. All right. Shirley, can you just confirm that you can see my slides and it's taking up the whole screen? Shirley or Gina, can one of you confirm that you can see my slides? It's taking up the whole screen. It's looking good?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. We have had some technology challenges that we've worked through today, but I am very, very excited to be with you all to talk about how we navigate non-hunger and emotional eating. It's incredibly common. We all, at certain times and certain points, will eat for non-hunger reasons. But those can lead to some distress and some negative emotions and some downstream effects. So it is great to have some tools that you can use and apply for those situations. We'll have some chances to practice that tonight as well as we get going. So tonight we're going to start off with the myth busting, get us in the mindset, the mind frame to talk about these different topics. I'll share a little bit about the why, the neural basis of why we eat and how it goes awry. It's very complicated. And so I just kind of want to point that out from the beginning. The reasons why we eat it's so complex. And so it's really interesting to think about and study, which is what I do, but it also kind of helps us understand why it's not as simple or as easy, or there's not a quick solution to things when it's involved with the brain and eating behaviors and emotions. We'll talk about emotional eating. We'll talk about eating in the absence of hunger. We'll distinguish those two different types of eating behaviors. We'll go over some effective coping skills. And I do want to say I'm going to give you a wide range of skills to use, a toolbox, kind of a big overview today. But I just want to note that we're all individuals. So a lot of these skills may work for you. A lot of them may not work for you. And that's okay. I just kind of want to present high level, big picture things for us to think about and to give us some time actually in our session tonight to practice those things together, see how they fit, see how they land. And then at the end, I'll just show a quick slide about some resources and referrals. And that if you are thinking about additional support or treatment or have more questions and concerns in this area, where to go and where to point, and really how to kind of help you move forward in those ways. All right, so Shirley did my introduction, so I won't go through this slide, but I am Dr. Matheson. I am a psychologist here at Stanford. And I say hello again because I actually am one of the attending providers that does our pre-bariatric surgery psychology evaluation. So you may have seen me, you may have met with me before, and if so, it's lovely that you're here. Thanks for coming tonight. If we haven't met yet, we might soon, or you'll be meeting with one of my colleagues to do. It's a standard evaluation just to help you think about surgery, think about your eating habits, your behaviors, your psychology, your mental health, behavioral health, as you get ready and go through the process. So if I have met with you before, it's nice that you're here. Thanks for coming. All right, I thought we would start off with some myth busting. So just think for yourselves, we're not in a class, we're not going to raise our hands, but just think for yourself some common myths that you might have heard, you might have felt, or might have noticed going on in our society. So myth number one, if I have the urge to eat, it means I'm actually hungry. What do we think? Well, probably given that we're busting myths, it is a myth that we want to bust. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily physiologically hungry, that we're being driven by a physical, metabolic, or biological hunger state if we have the urge to eat. So we'll talk about urges, we'll talk about head hunger and stomach hunger, how to help differentiate those two things, what a craving is, how to resist a craving, and how to know when we need to fuel our body because it's time to eat, our body needs that energy source, and maybe when we need to think about another strategy in those moments because it actually isn't time to physiologically take in more nutrition. What about myth number two? We're here talking about bariatric surgery. Surgery will fix my emotional eating if those of you are interested in coming into the surgery program. Or a medication will fix my emotional eating. Or a new diet or new weight loss activity is going to fix my emotional eating. Well, those are also myths. So we know that those things can be tools for our bodies, for our stomachs, for different endocrine processes or metabolic processes, but they're not cures for stress. And stress is something that's going to continue to impact us and continue to follow us in our lives, whether that's personal stress, environmental stress, global stressors. There's a lot we can control and there's a lot we can't control. And so those type of different treatment options are not going to fix emotional eating. Okay. And what about myth number three? Well, once I lose some weight, the food noise, it's just going to disappear. That's also a myth I hear, and that's also something I wanted to talk about tonight. That losing weight or changing lifestyle behaviors is not automatically correlated with having the food noise go down. And in fact, actually, some of my patients will find that the emotional triggers become louder when treatment options that help with weight loss are on board because food is no longer the available coping tool that it once was. And so emotions actually can sometimes get louder and harder to handle in those instances. So we'll talk some about that tonight too. And again, hopefully you'll leave here with just a few really practical strategies that you can start implementing in your lives to handle and manage those emotional eating situations and not turn to eating in those times. All right, so why do we eat? Because I think it's important to zoom out and think about all the reasons and sources and times that we turn to food. Well, we eat because we need to survive, right? That's our fuel source, right? We need the glucose, our body needs the energy. That's how we live. We've got to eat to survive. So we have to do it. We can't abstain from it. We can't decide we're not going to eat. We must eat to live and to function. But we also eat because it's pleasurable. It's enjoyable. It's rewarding. It lights up those reward centers in our brain. It gets that dopamine all happy. It gets those reward pathways in our brain firing and activated, which is a good thing because if it didn't, we might not remember to eat for survival reasons. So it's a built-in mechanism, but it also is really rewarding. And sometimes different folks have different levels of those reward centers and sensitivities. So it is rewarding, and that's another reason why we eat. But we also eat because it's cue-based. Seeing food, smelling food, being in a food environment can have us turn towards eating in those times, or because it's part of our habits and routines. So if every Saturday night you're with your partner on the couch and you guys decide to watch a TV movie together, 8 o'clock, and you have some popcorn, well, Tuesday rolls around, you happen to find yourself on that very same couch, you're turning on the TV, your brain and your body are already primed to expect that popcorn. It's habit, it's routine. Your body doesn't know that it's Tuesday, not Saturday. Your body doesn't know that you just have a change in your schedule. If it's habit and routine, it can kind of get paired together in a way that might start you wanting to and craving and going towards the food that's usually in those moments. And then there's lots of social cultural reasons why we eat. We get a promotion at work, we celebrate with food, we go out together. We have a loss in the family, and people bring us food, casseroles, baked goods for comfort. Lots of reasons why we eat for holidays. So it's very, very complicated. And I listed out some of kind of the homeostatic pathways and non-homeostatic pathways. Again, fancy words, homeostatic just means trying to keep everything at balance. Our bodies are happiest when everything's at balance, everything's working together. We're firing at full cylinders. We've slept well, we've eaten well, we've got the nutrition we need, we're not sick. Everything is just kind of moving and grooving. And again, there's lots of reasons why the brain must communicate with all the other networks to make sure we're getting in that nutrition and our body's using it in the ways it needs to grow, to learn, to function, to do our jobs, all the things. But there's also those non-homeostatic pathways, right? Reward pathways, executive control, decision making, learning and memory, motor system, sensory areas. Pretty much all of the brain lights up. So this is really complicated. And so because so many things are connecting to one another, there's lots of chances for the system to go awry. There's lots of chances to eat for non-homeostatic reasons. And so again, I want to make sure that this is not about a personal blame or an attack or feeling bad about yourself. We're just kind of wired to function in our environments to have those times of non-hunger eating. And to complicate matters further, food is more rewarding when we're hungry. So if you've heard the old adage before, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, there's actually some biological truth to that. There's different systems in the brain that's making food more rewarding in those moments because it wants to activate us to make sure we're getting in our nutrition. And particularly in those times, the food that's more rewarding tends to be foods that are higher in sugars and higher in fats and higher in energy density. And so we can make different choices when we're really hungry, and it primes us to actually overeat and give our bodies a little bit more than what it needs in those moments. Mood states also impact eating behaviors. So our research shows that about 40% of people, when they are stressed, eat a lot less. 40% of people, when they're stressed, actually do the opposite. They eat a lot more. And about 20% of people seem to be superhumans, and their stress doesn't bother them as much. It doesn't impact their eating behaviors. But the same stressor for different people might cause someone to eat more, or it might cause the exact opposite person to eat less. So it's complicated. Again, it's not just, oh, this thing will equal this. It's really about individual differences too. And we mentioned those environmental and external stimuli can cue us to eat. So thinking about you're walking around the mall and you smell the cinnamon bun smell that actually gets like piped into like air conditioning systems, and you were just trying to pick up a shirt for work, and all of a sudden, wow, we are craving, we must have that cinnamon bun. It smells so good. Now it's time to go eat. And then we talked about some cue prompted eating that also frequently happens. I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to switch over screens in just a moment. This is a video actually about binge eating and some of the research we're doing here with my colleagues at Stanford. So binge eating is a little bit different than what we are talking about tonight, but it is based in habit circuitry in the brain and habit networks, which also get activated with emotional eating, eating in the absence of hunger, and other types of disordered eating behaviors. So I'm going to show it to us because I think it's a really powerful video about what we're finding and we're learning about with eating in the brain. I'm going to stop sharing for one moment and pull up that video now. Give me just a second to pipe in my sound. Researchers here at Stanford now.
No sound coming out.
The sound's not working. It's not coming through.
No,
No sound.
unfortunately,
Okay.
no.
All right. Yeah, okay. Well, that's okay. We will send out that link in the slides and everybody can watch it on their own because it's just an access to a free YouTube video. So we won't waste any more time with some technical challenges there. But thank you for letting me know that it wasn't working. All right, we'll go back to our slides. Okay. But essentially, we are able to find some of the habit networks in the brain with our research studies, and again, suggesting that there are ways that behaviorally we can change our eating behaviors. And so you'll learn more about it when you're able to watch the video. And apologize that it wasn't working today. It usually does just fine, but technology is not always a smooth sail. All right. So let's talk about emotional eating. So emotional eating is eating anytime we are responding to an emotion. So eating because we are sad, eating because we are happy, or eating because we are bored. It's eating in response to an affective state. And for many of us, when we think about emotional eating, we might think of the classic example of someone going through a romantic relationship that's just ended. They're sitting on their couch, they're watching some sad movies, they're listening to some sad music, they go to the fridge, they grab the tub of ice cream, and they just go at it, right? But that is not really the picture of emotional eating that happens day to day for most of us. So, really, as you think about emotional eating, as we talk about it tonight, just keep in mind it's eating in response to any type of emotional state and really as a way of trying to change or impact that emotional state. There's a lot of emotions. I think we think of like happy, sad, bored, angry. But I put up some different pictures here, one of which is just a visual picture, the other has words. So, however you learn and process information best. But just take a moment right now, check in with yourself. Many of us probably haven't checked in with how we're emotionally feeling today. So, just check in. Think about where you might be on this color wheel or what face might represent how you're feeling right now. Maybe you've had a hard day at work. Maybe you're having some stress with your family. Maybe you've got some unexpected news. Maybe you're looking forward to some basketball this week. I know I am. Think about where you are and what your emotion might be. I'll give you a moment to do that. And sometimes I like to use these type of visual reminders because I also, even as a psychologist, get stuck in thinking, oh, I'm happy, sad, bored. And really, there's so many different variations of emotions and so many different variations of feelings, and we can have more than one at the same time. And I think that's also important to acknowledge. So let's talk about eating in response to these emotions, whether it's negative, positive, or out of boredom. Let's use the example I have here on the screen of sadness. So feeling really sad, feeling really down, deciding to turn to food to try to cope, to try to manage that emotional state. Well, when we do that, oftentimes it comes with guilt and it comes with shame and it comes with a feeling that we shouldn't have overeaten or that we're a bad person or that we're embarrassed about making that choice. And the kicker is we are still sad. Eating didn't solve the underlying issue, didn't solve the thing that was causing the sadness, didn't solve the problem, didn't make the sadness go away. So now we've got the original thing we're sad about, the original emotional feeling of sadness, and now we've added likely some guilt or maybe some shame to it. So now we've got even more emotions coming in, and then managing that with eating again can really just kind of set the cycle. And for many of my patients, it's a very easy cycle to fall into and a really hard one to get back out of. But recognizing that eating then creates two problems, we've still got to manage the underlying emotional state and the situation. And now we've eaten more than our body needs, and we're feeling a certain way about that, or our health is impacted because of that. So, thinking about again, knowing this is a very common experience, eating does provide a bit of temporary relief. It does temporarily provide some comfort, some dopamine hits, some reward signals to manage, but it's not a sustainable solution. And again, it doesn't change the overarching problem, the thing that made you sad to begin with. How to cope with emotional eating out of boredom. So, really, this is about thinking about other things we can do. And time is a limited resource, health is a limited resource. So, appreciating that these things might not be feasible or doable for everybody on this call. But what are some ways, right? Let's being creative, thinking about other things we can do with extra time. We're going to spend the time a few minutes to eat out of boredom. Maybe we can spend that time doing something else. So talking with a friend, engaging in a new hobby, doing some physical activity, watching a funny video, journaling, drawing, going for a walk, volunteering somewhere, spending time with your pets, learning a new instrument, taking a bubble bath, or cleaning the house. It doesn't have to be fun. It just has to be something that's engaging, something that's taking the time, something that's getting you out of the kitchen, out of that cycle of like opening the fridge, hoping something magically appeared there that wasn't there 5 minutes ago, repeating that cycle, getting something off your to-do list, using any of these ways of managing the boredom. In the risk of more technology issues tonight, I'd like to hear from you guys in the audience who are attending this webinar. What are your favorite distraction activities? There's so much power in groupthink and sharing together. So I'm going to try to activate this poll now. Let's see if it goes. I'm going to give it just a second. Go ahead, you can go to the website up here and type in. You can sign in anonymously. You don't need to put your name, or you should be able to scan this QR code. I think the poll is live, but it may also not work. So, oh, it is live. Good. Okay. Going to the gym, going walking. Yeah, these are great responses. Reading, listening to music, TV, crafting. Yeah. A lot of walking that's been coming up again and again for people. Talking with friends, spending time with family. Yeah, we could go bowling, we could go play laser tag, we could knit a quilt, a podcast. Love that. Okay. Learning something new, doing puzzles. Great. Shirley, can you see the word cloud, or is it on the different screen?
Not seeing the word cloud at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's coming through. But hopefully just thinking about a few things that you might want to try, that you might want to do differently, that you might want to add in. Things that are accessible, things that are easily available, things that are not very expensive. Going on a vacation sounds lovely, but how practical is that at 9 p.m. at night on a Tuesday? Not very. So, really think that you guys are doing a nice job of being creative and thinking about something else that you might want to incorporate. Or are there some activities that you might want to have on hand that you really enjoy, that you want to try first before turning to food when those emotions are strong? All right. So we are going to talk about eating in the absence of hunger. And this is my favorite pictures to show when we talk about eating in the absence of hunger. Because let's say you're at work, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, you go to fill up your water bottle, you pass by the break room, you notice a box of beautiful donuts. They've got sprinkles, they've got this chocolate drizzle going on, covered in nuts, bright colors. How many of us are stopping to get a donut? Like, honestly, probably a lot of us, maybe all of us, are going to be wanting, tempted. Yeah, I know I will. I know I do, right? We've already had breakfast. We had breakfast before we came to work. It's not time for lunch. And yet we're still going to turn to eating. And again, that's not really something that's pathological. That is something that most of us do. And it may be contributing to feelings, again, of discomfort, shame, guilt, or not helping you get to those health goals you want. So it's very easy to eat in the absence of hunger. We do it all the time. One of the ways we can help identify if it's really eating in the absence of hunger or if it's really responding to physiological hunger, which we always want to respond to physiological hunger, is to think about head hunger versus stomach hunger. So head hunger is also what we call cravings. It's when we really want to eat a food because it looks, smells, or tastes so good. And it's really hard to resist in those moments. Contrast that with stomach hunger. That's physiological hunger. That's your body's signal saying, hey, feed me. I need the fuel. I need the energy. I need the glucose. Send it on in. So we want to always kind of think about and be mindful. Watch out for the ways that our heads may be tricking us into thinking we need to eat more food or we need to eat at different food eating times. Now, I do want to pause and say that different people do have different levels of satiety, different levels of um, interoceptive awareness, right? Feeling the cues in their bodies, feeling the physical sensations, and different like hunger drives. And I do think that that is biologically based and biologically different. Some people feel hungry all the time, and some people never feel hungry. But I do think some of the skills is going to apply no matter kind of what your baseline level of hunger is. So to kind of point out more of the differences, head hunger comes on suddenly, feels like it needs to be satisfied instantly, kind of leads you to seeking out those specific comfort foods. It's not satisfied even on a full stomach. And again, most importantly, what we're talking about, why we want to maybe change this or do a different behavior, it does tend to trigger feelings of guilt, shame, powerlessness, disappointment, some strong negative emotions. Whereas stomach hunger comes on more gradually, it can wait. Makes us feel like we're open to lots of options. Lots of food sounds good. A salad might sound good, but so might a pizza, but so might a burrito, but so might some fish, so might some chicken, so might some steak, so might an apple. Lots of food sounds good. It's not like just the donuts or just the cinnamon roll or just the thing of ice cream. Physical hunger, the stomach hunger stops when we're full. It doesn't keep going. And it does not result in feeling bad about yourself, unless there's some type of more disordered eating going on that needs addressing. Stomach hunger, eating response to that does not result in those same negative emotions. So what's causing these cravings? When we see food, when we're getting the visual input of that food and it's like looking so good and it's right there. And when we smell foods, smell is such a powerful sense. Smell is linked to memory. Smell is linked to how we interpret the world, how we're feeling. It can be very grounding. Scent is a very strong smell. And so that can also prompt us to want to eat and to experience a craving. So another way to kind of differentiate whether this is stomach hunger or whether this is head hunger is to use a hunger meter tool. Some of you may have used this in the past. For some of you, this may be new. I put a 1 to 10 scale here. I like to use 1 to 10, but you can use 1 to 5. You can use 1 to 20 if you really want to get very detailed. But just really thinking about trying to stay in the middle of that scale. Not getting too hungry, because then we're at risk of overeating, but not getting too full either. And then knowing where your hunger levels are at can help you decide, oh, do I actually need some more fuel right now? Is it time to eat this donut at work? Or do I want to save it for later? Or do I not need it at all? And it's really just a head hunger craving. So really trying to stay in the middle of the scale. Begin eating when you're like a 3 or a 4. If you're using a 10-point scale, when you're starting to feel hungry, you're noticing some hunger pains, it's been 3 to 4 hours since you last ate. And then working to stop eating when you get to about a 7 or 8. You're feeling satisfied. You can easily go for a walk. You could go outside. You could do your job. You can go spend time with the kids. The hunger is gone. We want to stop before we get to a 9 or a 10 because sometimes when we go too much, again, we're giving our body more fuel than it needs, which can have some physical ramifications. But then we can also have some psychological ramifications too, where maybe we feel bad about overeating or feel really full and then we don't eat as much at the next eating opportunity, or we restrict on purpose because we think, oh, we had a really big lunch, we don't need to eat dinner. But actually, your body still needs that fuel coming in. So then we risk overeating later because we've gotten too hungry. We risk the negative emotions, gets us right back into those cycles, those little wheels we were talking about earlier. So thinking about where you are on the hunger meter, checking in with yourself before, during, and after an eating, like a meal or a snack. And then waiting 20 minutes after you've had a plate of food or a portion of food to see if you're still hungry. The food will be there. You can always get more, unless you live in a house with teenagers. And then they may eat it all before you get to it. But food is readily available in our society. So waiting 20 minutes to really give your body and your brain a chance to talk, to catch up, and to reassess where you are on that hunger scale. So let's practice. It's almost dinner time, or at least we're heading into our evening times now. So thinking it for yourself, what are some signs that you're hungry? Some of those signs might be headaches, tiredness, difficulty concentrating, your stomach might growl, you might have hunger pains, you might get kind of angry or grumpy or grouchy. You might not feel any of those. It might show up in a very different way for you. But thinking about what things do you notice in your body, bringing that awareness back to our bodies, checking in, seeing what signals our bodies are giving us. So we'll practice it now. Go ahead and look at the hunger scale. Think about those different anchor points from 1 to 10. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes. We're going to take some deep breaths to really focus us inward, think about our internal sensations, and pick a number. So we'll do that now. Go ahead, I invite you to close your eyes with me. And take those deep diaphragmatic breathing, right? So the diaphragm is sitting above your stomach, a little bit below your rib cage. If you feel comfortable, you can place your hands right under there. And you should feel it expanding and contracting, but taking those slow, deep breaths in, holding, letting it back out. And then take one more deep breath in, hold it, and let it back out. And then focus on those internal sensations you're feeling. Thinking about the last time you had something to eat, thinking about your energy levels, your tiredness, any aches and pains. What are you feeling? And then think about where you might place yourself right now on the hunger scale. And if you're eating, thinking about how to incorporate this before you eat, while you're eating, and then also after you eat or after you finish, just to learn more about your own hunger levels and how your body's responding to food. All right. So as I mentioned when we opened this talk, it's about building a toolbox, building out a lot of different effective coping skills and figuring out which ones might work best for you. I've listed a number here. Distracting, self-soothing, using your senses, doing something comforting for yourself, taking a walk. Many of you name that as a really effective skill that you use to combat boredom, getting outside, changing scenery is so important. I even tell my patients, if you're sitting, stand. If you're standing, sit. Even just moving our bodies as much as we're able to, that little bit can actually really rewire, reprompt something in the brain, reset us. Journaling is a great way of coping, writing things down, getting out worries, getting out anxieties, putting it all together. That's, again, how you like to use a coping skill. Crying can be really effective. Crying gets a negative rap, I think, a lot of times, but crying, if it's well-timed, if it's in the middle of this presentation right now, probably not my most effective use of a coping skill, but crying is really a very useful skill and tool, a way of our bodies communicating and releasing some emotions. Talking with a friend or loved one, doing mindfulness or meditation work, coming back to the present moment, working on non-judgmental thoughts, and then urge surfing, which we'll talk about now too. So urge surfing is this idea of thinking about a craving like riding a wave, that you know it's going to come up and you know it's going to crest, it's going to get really strong, it's going to get really high. But just like a wave, your craving will also always come back down. If the hunger is physiological, it's not going to come back down. Your body's going to keep pinging you to pay attention to it. But if it's a craving, that craving, will come back down. Usually the research suggests this only takes about 20 minutes for the whole cycle. So thinking about 20 minutes feels like a really long time to wait for something, feels really hard to manage. You're going to be thinking a lot about the food. It's going to be really distracting. See if you can break it down into 5-minute increments. Is there some non-food activity you can do for 5 minutes? And if you're still food focused, check back in on that hunger scale. Check back in and make sure it's not physiological hunger that's driving you to seek out food. But if it really is a craving, if it really is an urge, take those 5 minutes, build it up to 20 minutes, and it should and will come back down. I used to run a treatment program as part of a research protocol where we would bring folks their favorite, most preferred, most exciting foods. And we would ask them to look at it, smell it, taste it, rate their cravings, and then after 5 minutes, actually throw it away. To really, again, teach us that we can, as long as we're not hungry, we can resist those urges, we can wait those out, we can wait till the next eating opportunity. This is a skill that takes a lot of practice. It's not easy, it's not intuitive, but I do like the visual of the wave as something that we can ride and we can kind of get through the craving together. Another exercise I really love to do, I teach this to all of my patients, I try to remember to do it as often as I can myself, is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a grounding exercise to really, again, bring us back to the present moment, notice the things that are around us, to get us out of the anxiety spirals, to get us off of the focus on food, to get us out of that really sticky, tough emotional state. And what this is, we'll have a chance to practice it in just a moment, but it's using what you have around you and your senses to bring your present awareness back. So 5 would be looking at 5 things and noticing those sights. 4 would be touching 4 things, like actually touching them and noticing their textures and how they're feeling tactily. 3 would be smelling 3 things and noticing their scents. For some of us, we might have to get a little creative if we're not outside and we can smell beautiful flowers and trees and plants. We might have to smell our water bottles or smell our sweaters or our socks, or might have to smell a pen or smell a keyboard. Things have scents and smells. So kind of just taking the moment to notice those things and actually engage with that sense. 2 would be listening for 2 things and noticing the sounds you hear, whether it's birds outside, cars, the air conditioning, a kid screaming in another room, noticing sounds. And then 1 stands for 1 deep breath. And remember to use that diaphragmatic breathing, not the shallow breathing, the diaphragm breathing that goes in and out and really helps regulate our systems. So diaphragmatic breathing is really important. It works on our vagal nervous system, which helps decrease the fight and flight response. So there's a lot of, again, really powerful research around just breathing can help regulate emotions and bring us back to the moment. So let's practice. So nobody's unmuted, so you can do this wherever you are, if you're at home, at work, or in your car. I want you to do this and really engage in this exercise. And when we hit 5, I want you to name 5 things you can see, like computer, clock, pen, paper, shoes. Name them out loud and really focus on them. Same thing with touching and smelling. Really engage. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Let's name 5 things that you can see and notice the sights. Okay, touch 4 things and notice the different textures. Go ahead and smell 3 things. Notice the scents that you're smelling. Listen for 2 things. Notice the sounds you're hearing. It's a very well-timed motorcycle outside my window. I did not plan that. Okay. And take 1 deep breath. One of the other things I like about this skill is you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's quick, and it's a great way to bring you back to the present moment and kind of reset your emotional state. There's another tool that people like to use. It's called the H.A.L.T tool, or the hunger, angry, lonely, tired, checking in, seeing if you're eating because you're hungry or eating because of an emotional state like anger, eating because you're alone, you're lonely, it's something to do. Or are we tired? Do we really just need a nap or more sleep? Or really just need to rest our bodies? So the steps for kind of using this tool would be to step 1, pause, sit with your feelings, take those deep breaths we've been talking about. Feelings are always valid. Feelings are not something we need to change, but we do want to acknowledge them and understand what we're feeling and maybe why and where it's coming from. Step 2 is to recognize any negative self-talk you might have. Many of us have a critical inner voice that comes out that we would never say those things to our kids, to our spouses, to a friend. And yet somehow it's okay to say those things to ourselves. So I would encourage you to think about those, placing some distance between that, saying something positive or at least something neutral to yourself in those moments instead of using that critical voice. What would you say to a friend? How would you reframe this? Step 3 might be eat mindfully. So if you're going to choose to eat at that time, put together a meal or snack. Thoughtfully put it together. Take your time to eat slowly, chewing well, taking time between bites, sitting at the table. This is really important. I'll come back to this in a minute. Choosing one spot in your house to eat. One spot is the food place. Again, habits, your brain can associate that with I'm hungry, I eat here. It's really easy, tempting to take that snack in front of the TV or take it as you're working or take it on the go. But trying as much as you can, as much as your schedule will allow, to eat mindfully, eat in one place, have the meal be the thing you're doing. And then think about step 4, those healthy distractions to soothe your emotion. What do you need in that moment? What's going to make you feel better? That does not mean turning to food. This is actually a log we use in our adolescent bariatric surgery program. So I'm also the attending psychologist for our Children's Hospital's bariatric surgery program. And we encourage our patients to use what's called a body awareness log. So you can use this, you can use something else. Maybe you already have some type of tracking or journaling system that you like to do that's working well. But thinking about what you're eating, checking in with those hungers, a space to write the hunger down, checking in, again, goals around protein, vitamins, water intake, and other health behaviors. But I really love this space for reflections and also this space over here that says, today I give myself credit for. Because we're doing hard work. We're doing lots of things. What did we do to give ourselves credit that day? Maybe it's just getting up and out of the house. But what do we want to give ourselves credit for? We focus so much on what to change and the negative and the problems. We also want to make sure we're not discounting the positives and what we are doing well. So this can bring our awareness to both the helpful and not so helpful patterns, right? What we want to change, but also what we're doing well. And we know just by self-monitoring, just by writing it down, just by having someone check in with you about it, it actually creates habit changes. So this may be another good tool where you can check your emotions and check how that's impacting your eating behaviors. And then thinking about mindful eating as well. So using all of your senses and choosing food that's both satisfying, it's nourishing. We talked about kind of really focusing on what you're eating, slowing down, paying attention, trying to get rid of the judgment thoughts as much as we can, being really neutral. And if you are going to go through bariatric surgery, it can help us really think about how to adjust hunger and fullness cues after surgery when we're having smaller portions of food. So this is a tool now. This is a tool if you're thinking about surgery as an option, but paying attention to what our body needs. So there's a couple steps we can do to practice that. I'm not expecting everybody to go grab their dinner now, but I'll just go over the steps so that you have them and you'll have them in your slides. Paying close attention to the first few bites of food. That first bite is going to be really exciting, really rewarding, really satisfying. Not rushing that, enjoying that, savoring those first several bites of a meal. Using your five senses of mindful eating intentionally, setting that intention before starting the meal, saying, I'm going to notice the colors, the smells, the textures, the spices, how everything's come together, what plate it's on, how I'm feeling in this moment. Really setting an intention about the senses. Trying as much as you can, turning off the screens, eating in one location, really focusing on the eating behavior itself. Checking in with your hunger fullness like we've talked about, using a hunger fullness rating or just checking in as you're eating and also afterwards. Slowing down your pace, right? So taking some breaks, putting down the fork, which is the next one, really trying to interrupt the quick eating because that's another place where we can sometimes eat more than we want. We're not getting the physiological hunger signals about fullness and satiety and can create some negative emotions downstream. All right, this is my last kind of slide before resources and referrals. I just want to note we did not talk tonight about loss of control eating or binge eating. And we purposely didn't talk about it because it is different than emotional eating, and it is different than eating in the absence of hunger. So loss of control eating is this feeling like you can't stop eating, even when you want to. And when that loss of control feeling is paired with eating an objectively large amount of food, that's what we would clinically define as binge eating. And binge eating is for many folks is associated with guilt, distress, shame, can be secretive. It's a very common eating disorder. It's the most common we see. Some estimates say that even up to maybe 5% of people will meet diagnostic criteria for binge eating disorder at some point in their life. But it does require specialized skills and treatment. So if this is something that's going on for you, if you're feeling like you just can't stop eating, it might be a good idea to check in with your medical teams, check in with your physicians, check in with your treatment teams, and think about whether a referral to an eating disorder specialist is warranted or needed. I want to give you hope, though, if you're going through this presentation, you're like, but this isn't me. Oh, but this is me. I feel like this is what's happening. We have really, really good evidence-based psychotherapy treatments for binge eating disorder. A large percentage of folks get well through outpatient once-a-week therapy for just a few months. So seek treatment now. Do not delay. We are standing by, ready to help, ready to support you. So many different treatment options, both therapy and some medication options. So please do think about if this is kind of describing more of your eating patterns. Okay, and just some resources and referrals again, some websites about eating disorders in case, again, you're thinking, oh, this isn't quite me, this something else is going on. There's our Stanford Eating Disorders program here. Give us a call. You can self-refer. We would be happy to treat you, provide you support for you or your loved ones if needed. anytime we talk about emotions and mental health, I like to just remind everyone we have a national crisis hotline. Folks are standing by 24/7, available to support you. So you can text or you can call. And then your bariatric surgery team is here for you. Your weight management team is here for you. Your doctors are here for you. We want to hear from you. We want to support you. So reach out to us and use us as a resource as well. And I think we might have just a few minutes for questions. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the chat, and surely I know you're monitoring that too.
Wow, such great tools and a comprehensive look on about all the questions I've been wondering for a long time. I have a question. This is really common uh, about food noise. Do you feel like people who mention food noise generally emotional, non-hunger eating driven, or is that potentially something else?
I think both. I
Mhm.
think it's really about those individual differences we talked about. Like,
Mhm.
I talk to patients all day long, and one person describing food noise doesn't look like another person describing food noise, right? Or these common terms we're hearing. So I think it's really important to check with the person and how they're experiencing it, what's going on for them, where it's showing up. But again, where it's causing a problem. We don't want to fix things that are not problems, right? Emotional eating, it often leads to problems. Eating in the absence of hunger may or may not. So it's really about kind of figuring out if there's a problem and meeting people where they are. I will say, I think that a lot of my patients are noticing certain new classes of medications helping with decreasing the cravings or decreasing the interest of food and eating. But that is very different than emotional eating or turning to food as a way of coping with emotional stress. I don't think that's changing. So I think it is something to differentiate, but a lot more research is needed. We don't have good operational definitions of those things, as you know, from your work and supporting nutrition.
Actually, your answer answered the second my question about that, which is about medications and how that addresses that sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. And I do see that difference where they see appetite decrease versus not. Well, perhaps you gave all of the answers already to folks who are listening today. That's why there's not a lot of questions. So I want to thank you for everyone who attended today. Thank you for presenting, putting this together for us and our current and future clients who's joining us today. And I just want to mention that next month is our third Wednesday will be April 4th, 15th. Not the best day to do a talk, but on tax day, but that will be our next month's Nourish to Flourish. So please join us. Oh, actually, one question. So we can say DBT, one is the most effective treatment methods for emotional eating. This person is asking if you have this.
Yes, DBT is great. DBT teaches
Mhm.
us. DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. For those who don't know, there's lots of different modules around mindfulness and interpersonal effectiveness, but also a lot around emotion regulation and distress tolerance. And a lot of those skills I have folks find are really useful for handling their strong negative emotions and not turning to eating. So yes, that's a great question. DBT is a really effective treatment. It's also an effective treatment for binge eating disorder as well. So it has a lot of different applications to food and eating for us. So yeah, that's a wonderful treatment option. And yeah,
Thank you so much, Brittany. I'm going to
okay.
let you go move
Yes.
on with your night. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and ending the session now. Good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.